and you can't think greater than how you feel, you're thinking in the past. Yes or no? Yes. And you'll keep creating more of the same life. So then, think about this. You wake up in the morning, your brain, for the most part, is in the past. Yes or no? Yes. And would you agree then, if you connect to a familiar feeling or an emotion, and those emotions are driving your thoughts, and those thoughts are creating the same emotions, and those same emotions are driving your same thoughts, and those same thoughts are creating the same emotions, that you're conditioning your body into the past? Yes or no? Yes. And your body is the unconscious mind. It doesn't know the difference between an experience in your life that's creating an emotion and an emotion that you're creating by thought alone. So the body, it's believing and it's living in the same past experience 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Yes or no? Yes. And the body is beginning to continuously get the same information, and it's believing it's in the same environmental condition, which means you're signaling the same gene in the same way. Yes or no? And now you're headed for a genetic destiny. Yes or no? And you've done nothing wrong. You're just taking too long. Because those emotions then will define you. And then someone will say to you, "What's up? Why are you so angry? Why are you so bitter? Why are you so afraid? Why are you so in so much pain? Why are you suffering so bad?" And you say, "I'm so glad you asked." And then you tell a narrative, the story of your past, firing and wiring the same circuits in your brain, working yourself up into an emotional froth. Keep signaling the body into the past, reaffirming your personality based on a feeling. And the latest research on memory says that 50% of what you're talking about isn't even the truth. That you make stuff up. You embellish it. That memory is creative. And what that really means after all these years of studying this, when you ask a person that, it means that they had an event or a series of events in their life that branded them emotionally. And when they tell that narrative, what they're really saying is, "I haven't been able to change since that event. I've been altered from that experience." Yes or no? Yes. And they find people in their life that are the same emotion, the same energy, and they use each other to reaffirm their addiction to that emotion. And they get agreement for it. And they say, "I can suffer more than you can." No, I can suffer more than you do. So then, the body becomes conditioned into the past, which means for the most part, most people's biologies are anchored in the past. And if how you think and how you feel creates your state of being, and you're thinking the same thoughts that are creating the same feelings and the same emotions, and those emotions are influencing your thoughts, would you agree then you're signaling that same gene over and over again? And if genes are responsible for the structure and the function of the body, and you keep selecting and instructing the same gene, you're going to wear that gene out. Yes or no? Yes. Just like gears in your car. Taking a fax of a fax of a fax of a fax, or a copy of a copy of a copy, sooner or later, it's going to lose its detail. Yes or no? And that's exactly what happens to the body. The body begins to break down because those proteins are responsible for your physiology, for your structure. So then if immune cells make immune proteins, and you're living in fear every single day, you're living in anger and resentment and impatience every single day, then you're signaling the same gene in the same way. Yes or no? And if you keep doing that for a period of time, sooner or later you're going to program that gene, and all of a sudden the body's going to get unhealthy. Yes or no? And look, people say, "Well, I did my meditation 3 days and nothing happened." But I tell them, how long did it take you to create that condition? Tell me. So then if meditation means to become familiar with, you got to become more familiar with the thoughts, behaviors, and emotions of your future than familiar with the thoughts and behaviors, emotions of your past. Yes or no? Yes. So then if you keep firing and wiring the same circuits in your brain, installing the circuits, the hardware becomes a software program, and it gets easier to think in unlimited ways. It gets easier to act like a wealthy person. It becomes easier then to cultivate the emotions of your future instead of the emotions of your past. And our students, people in this work, some of them have had horrific pasts. They've been abused, they've been traumatized, they have had very difficult conditions. And they stopped telling the story of their past. They started telling the story of their future, and they started believing more in that in their past. And when people come up to me and they vomit all over me about their past, I don't have a problem with that. I know that it's natural to do that. But I always ask them, listen to me. If you can't overcome that past in some way and you're feeling those emotions, you'll only talk about your past when you're feeling those emotions, because those emotions bring you back to your past. Yes or no? Yes. Come on. Yes. But if you're having a great life, you never talk about your past anymore because you're no longer emotionally bound to it. Yes or no? Yes. So then the moment you start feeling emotional, hint, you're back in your past. Yes or no? So now reason this with me. Great experiments have been done on the fact that we emit light and information, that you are an electromagnetic being, that you are emitting energy and information. And all that energy is carrying a message. And if you're living every single day in the same energy, then your life should not change in any way. Yes or no? Yes. Come on. Yes. Come on, stay with me. Did the gene thing throw you off? So think about this. When you are living in fear, when you're living in anger, when you're living in resentment, you're living in survival because those emotions signal the stress response. Yes or no? Yes. And when you turn on that stress response, you are going to draw from this invisible field of vital energy around your body, that light and that information, and you're going to turn it into chemistry. And you're going to diminish your very field around your body. Yes or no? Yes. So then, when you perceive a threat, when you see a circumstance in your environment that is unpredictable or unknown, the moment you perceive that, you activate that fight or flight nervous system, the sympathetic nervous system, and you're going to mobilize enormous amounts of energy to prepare yourself for that danger in your outer world. Yes or no? And you can do that on the short term because that's survival. But when the event is over, the body rests, parasympathetic nervous system turns back on, long-term building projects start to occur, you're starting to heal. And all organisms can tolerate short-term stress. But what if it's not a predator? What if it's your coworker? What if it's your boss? What if it's your sister-in-law? Because of some past experience, you're perceiving that condition in your environment based on your past, and you're turning on the same stress response as if you were being chased by a predator. Yes or no? And you keep going back into that environmental condition, and you knee-jerk in the same way, and you keep producing those same chemicals over and over again, same chemicals over and over again. The stress chemicals downregulate genes to create disease. It's a fact. Are you with me still? So then, if you're doing that for an extended period of time, and all of a sudden now you become addicted to the very rush of chemistry that gives the brain and body a rush of energy, would you agree then, if you keep doing that over and over again like an addict, you need to feel angry. You need to feel lack. You need to feel unworthy because it reaffirms the emotional state. Are you still with me? Now, it gets a little bit weird here because we got a big frontal lobe. And you can just call up a memory from the past. And the moment you call up the memory from the past, your body's in the past physiologically and emotionally. And you can begin to worry about the worst thing that could happen in your life. Out of the infinite potentials in the quantum field, you're going to select the worst case scenario. And you're going to begin to get ready for that event. And you are going to begin to change your emotional state in preparation for the worst thing that could happen. Because in survival, if you prepare for the worst, you have better chances of surviving. Are you with me still? Now, I would call that a limited imagination. Yes or no? But in survival, though, when you're in stress, then, if you prepare for the worst and it doesn't happen and something less happens, you have a better chance of living. And this is the primitive survival gene that begins to become activated. And people spend their entire life doing this. And all they're doing is marrying a clear intention, a vision of their future, which is a very limited point of view, and embracing it with a familiar emotion of the past. And they're expecting their past to be their future. And if how you think and how you feel creates your state of being, that person's past is going to be their future. Are you with me still? Yes. So then, reason this with me. If you can turn on the stress response just by thought alone, and the hormones of stress give the brain and body a rush of energy, and people become conditioned or addicted like junkies to those emotions, then would you agree with me then? If you can turn on that stress response just by thought alone, that you can become addicted to your own thoughts. Yes or no? And if the hormones of stress are highly addictive and you're using your boss or your coworker or your sister-in-law or your finances to reaffirm your addiction to that emotion, is it possible you become addicted to the life you don't even like? Yes or no? And this is why change is so hard. And if you can turn on the stress response just by thought alone, and the hormones of stress downregulate genes to create disease, then your thoughts could make you sick. Yes or no? So, okay, let's go out on a limb here. If your thoughts could make you sick, is it possible that your thoughts could make you well? Yes. Okay. So then that means then that you would have to start a process of no longer drawing from this invisible field of vital energy and turning it into chemistry and diminishing your own light field. When you do that over time in chronic stress, and you keep drawing from this invisible field of energy and turning it into chemistry, you have no light field. Yes or no? Yes. Come on. Yes. So now you're more matter and less energy, more particle and less wave. And in fact, the hormones of stress cause you to narrow your focus on objects and things and people, because that's where the danger is. And when the hormones of stress kick in and your brain waves go into high beta and you're aroused, you're going to pay attention to your outer world, and you're no longer going to want to believe in your inner world of possibility. Are you with me still? And if the survival gene is switched on, then you won't want to go in, close your eyes and create, because it's not a time to create. It's not a time to focus on the unknown. It's a time to prepare yourself for what could be lurking behind those corners. And it's not a time to learn. It's not a time to open your heart. It's not a time to be vulnerable. It's not a time to sit still. It's a time to run, to fight, or to hide.